Patch 10.2.5 is coming just about as expected. We've got a bunch of news to react to from an interview with two of WoW's daddies, and we just avoided the entire game being ruined forever. I was really close to shifting towards more, artsy content. Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, starring this hopelessly optimistic talking head. You can help support the channel by hitting the like button, subscribing for more coverage, and you can catch me live on Twitch for a chat. World of Warcraft is in a pretty good state when the worst thing to talk about this week is a Transmog appearance, although actually I'd be lying. The worst thing about WoW is arguably the rated PvP situation, where matchmaking calculations are off the mark to the point where top PvP is almost unplayable. However, most of my viewers, including you at home, probably don't really PvP, so here we are with Transmog. Let's rewind back to early this year when patch 10.0.5 released, featuring the trading post, which has since become the answer to the phrase,
"The best looking item shouldn't come from spending money. They should be given to the best players like me because f*** them casuals."
I don't think that's it at all.
Well, f*** you too.
Yeah, well, welcome back, jerk. Happy holidays.
Bah humbug.
There's an achievement attached to this feature, Trading Post Enthusiast, that says when you have earned the monthly reward from the Trading Post 12 times, you'll get a very special set, the Burden of Unrelenting Justice. Aside from a few folks who accidentally received it early, most players can expect to get this in just a few short weeks. An article posted earlier this week featuring the set, which changes its color depending on the time of day. It's an identical feature to the Ashadar Harbinger of Dawn mount, which was the first Trading Post monthly award. So wow, cool, color changing Transmog. I can't wait to try it out and watch the colors change against my will, forcing me to pick out what neutral colors on off pieces. It's gonna be super exciting, and surely everyone's going to love it. Just kidding. Who would have guessed that just like in the real world, folks don't want their clothes to suddenly change color? Fortunately though, there's a happy ending. The WoW team announced in a recent statement that there will be 3 versions of the set put into players' hands, the existing set and static versions of the 2 colors. So, hey, well done Team Fandom. Together, we saved World of Warcraft from what could have been truly a disaster from which they may have never recovered from. This is one of those situations where people who don't try to stay in the loop, or they're gonna have no idea about the whole back and forth that went on over these past couple days, and they're just gonna get these new sets next month and they'll be like, wow, cool. Meanwhile, others are gonna be rightfully patting themselves on the back, proud that their feedback fixed the game, and now it's off to the next target on the list, player housing. Did you know that... Really? Oh, okay, stop, I'm stopping. Several members of the WoW Community Council sat down with 2 of WoW's daddies, Ian Hezekiah and Jeremy Fiesel, to ask some general modern WoW questions. I'm gonna go over the important bits and provide some commentary. Remember that Arthas pet that we were farming for during the Hallow's End event? The drop rate was a mistake, they admitted. They want to actually move away from the old school model where like a super rare drop like a Heartbreaker mount or Headless Horseman exists, or Arthas, and instead they want to move to a model where there is like a new holiday, or at least like it's a new year of that holiday, and there are more new rewards added, with the expectation that while you might not be able to 100% all the items right away, if there is a certain something that you do want, you are going to be able to get it. It might be because it's currency based, or it's locked behind like some sort of quest they didn't really specify. Meanwhile, the likes of the Heartbreaker and the Headless Horseman's mounts, as I mentioned, unfortunately those have been in the game for so long that it's not likely that they're going to touch them more than they already have. Soloing old raids is going to get a look at, and before Dragonflight's over, the likes of Battle for Azeroth raids should be completely soloable. Currently they're kind of not, and Ian cited examples like how Mithrax and Uldir will mind control someone and end the fight right away, or that one of the bosses in the Eternal Palace will take almost no damage if they're close together. Some mechanics that prevent soloing is what the team is looking to fix, and the gradual progression of levels and gear will do the rest of the work. When stat or level squishes happen though, that's when the team has to do some manual tweaking. As it stands right now, I can at least sort of attempt some bosses in Mythic Castle Nathria, for example. This demonstrates that right now I have the survivability of an entire 20-man raid, although the DPS could be higher. But since it's only 1 expansion old, I need to also know the mechanics and figure out a way to overcome most of them. Like, for example, Hungering Destroyer was a challenge because you can't heal, and the boss gets a stacking damage buff that does eventually start hurting you. So here I am popping Fleshcraft pre-fight and using trinkets and such to up my ability to absorb damage, because at least I could do that. But next expansion, I'll be like 5 times stronger than this, so for these bosses, I'll be just fine eventually. Now, as for how a warrior is going to solo heal Kael'thas, that's going to be a problem that the team will have to handle in about 3 years or so. Remember those little tender bundles that we saw earlier this year? They're not likely to be a thing going forward. Offering tender with the likes of an expansion box or maybe those like 6 or 12-month promos, like, big bundles, that's what we can expect. Now, never say never, but they were clear in saying that we don't have to worry about a small tender bundle every month in an effort to like normalize the monetization of the trading post. There was an interesting question on how to improve the lore experience, especially for new players, because their answer was it was only okay. Like, they know it's not great, I'll give them that much credit, and they prefer that your experience be in-game as opposed to watching some YouTube recap. Now, I brought up a wacky suggestion once. I was suggesting an entirely separate main story questline that spans across expansions, but the scope of that would be absolutely insane. Instead, what the WoW team hinted at were in-game journals and cinematics. Now, I'm not entirely sure what they mean, but I think they're trying to hint that they want like new players to kind of quickly get caught up rather than invite them or even force them to grind through entire like multiple expansions worth of quest content. Now, I can half agree with a proposal like that because it at least does a bare minimum to fill in the gaps, while players at least have the option to enrich themselves with all them legacy quests that are already in the game now. Warbound gear seems to be a much bigger deal than I had first thought. The team was asked about what the difference was between Warbound and account-bound drops. So basically, and we already know a lot of this, Warbound gear is gear that you can freely trade between alts until you have them put it on, and then it becomes soul-bound to just them. But I'll just play Ian's full answer and, well, then we'll react.
These items, though, I think will be dropping at much higher power levels than any of the previous tradable stuff that we've seen would. As we said, they're probably going to be a half tier or so below what you're currently, what the normal loot of what you're running is. But that means if you run a high key, you could still be getting, in today's world, like a 460 that you can just hand to an alt and have them equip. We want to make sure that we're drawing that line such that it's never the right behavior to use multiple alts to funnel loot to your main. But this should be, an exciting way to have hand-me-downs to, get an alt started, or in some cases even a great excuse to level an alt if you get an amazing weapon or trinket or something that, is for a class that you haven't played recently. Well, they're going to have a fun surprise waiting for them when they, hit max level and get ready to get geared up.
The possibility of a Mythic Plus drop being tradable down to your alts is absolutely huge. Like, let's talk about some possibilities here and how it can be put into practice. Like, let's pretend that I do high level keys, like I'm talking 20s. I'm, pretty good at this game. We finish the dungeon and loot goes out. So what if, on top of the loot that would normally go out, what if there's a chance that you might receive a piece of Warbound gear that you can just tuck away into your shared bank for your alt to someday pick up? Now, this clearly isn't meant to be abused, and it's already clear from Ian's statement. He said that the gear would be a half tier weaker than what would normally drop. So, using this example, right now, the best drops that you can get from a key are hero class. That's the best thing you can get from that chest. So that's going to mean the best Warbound drops that you can get are likely going to be like veteran class gear. It's going to be the equivalent to Raid Finder. Now, suddenly, this seems less exciting, precisely because it's not broken, but, try to put yourself into this particular player mindset. Come next expansion, between the rounds of different activities that we do and the gear that we would otherwise toss aside, a portion of that gear is going to be Warbound. At first, hearing about Warbound stuff, I was like, okay, cool. But now, knowing that these drops can come from even late game features like high-level keys, this covers a lot of what players have been asking for. It's not just alt-friendly, but it's also alt-encouraging. Because once one starts building up a full set of stuff, it's going to plant a thought in their head like, maybe you should level that class. You got all this gear and you're pretty much ready to go. Do it, do it, do it. It hits a certain way, sort of like how you've been working on your main for a bit and you might be bored and just, choose another class because it's on your list, or maybe someone said it's the meta, it's fun, or whatever. This, though, introduces a different sort of psychological tick, and I'd love to get your thoughts. Dragonflight still isn't over yet. We still have a bit to go with the upcoming 10.2.5 patch, which did have a release candidate build deployed just the other day. It just doesn't feel very releasey. Kind of like the 10.0.5 patch from a million years ago, don't expect too much. Follower dungeons are a big deal. It's really setting the stage for some huge stuff later on, but it's still just that first step that we're getting right now. We're going to have some new activities with the Azerothian archives. Worgen and Night Elf fans are going to take control of a big chunk of territory, and we'll be able to drag and ride through pretty much all of it. Odds are pretty good that the team is wrapping up their work a little bit early, and a bunch of them are going to take they're going to take the next 2 or so weeks off for the holiday break with an early January release of the patch to follow up. Apparently a 10.2.6 encrypted build is out there, giving no sign that WoW is slowing down on their schedule. Heck, even the 11.0 War Within expansion has an encrypted build out there. It makes you wonder if the WoW team is trying to maybe over-deliver on its dates. So here's my guess, based on the Dragonflight schedule, which is probably the best reflection of how WoW production is happening these days. The internal alpha is already launching a little bit earlier than usual, which might reflect the game having a bigger team that can work on more of the game at once. The closed alpha, I predict, is going to begin sometime in May, to reflect the testing beginning in the spring, because it's still technically spring. The alpha and beta is going to last for about 4 months, just like how Dragonflight lasted, and the expansion is going to launch in September. In the meantime, we're going to be getting a 10.2.5, a 2.6, and a 2.7, which will include a faded season and then later on the pre-patch. I have a feeling that this next expansion is going to feel like it's coming pretty quick with these other patches getting our attention. Now maybe I'm wrong, with this alpha coming a little bit earlier than normal, it kind of opens the door for the team to over-deliver. And hey, if I'm wrong, it's like a good outcome from being wrong, right? There's no complaints here. Whatever the case though, sooner or later, we're going to get a 2024 roadmap, which will make all these predictions a lot more boring, but for now, what do you think? And that's the show. Next week, I plan on doing a bit of a recap of World of Warcraft in 2023, but here's a preview. Dang, they did a lot. Like, we had the rest of Wrath Classic, we had Hardcore and the Season of Discovery stuff, we had the bulk of the Dragonflight storyline, and huge changes to WoW with its first support specialization, a whole reimagining of the gear progression through upgrades, we got a huge reward track in the form of the trading post, and more. I'm a little bit surprised that WoW wasn't even like so much as nominated in those game awards for being the best ongoing game for, if nothing else, the dramatic turnaround that they had since they're stumbling their way out of Shadowlands in 2022. I hope it turns out to be a fun and entertaining enough recap that I'll have ready by the end of the month. Otherwise, you're going to see fewer videos over the next few weeks. In the meantime, though, I've got to thank the incredible folks who've been sticking around on stream, not to mention those who drop by to say hi. I always appreciate it. Of course, to our patrons, thank you so much for giving, and to you, viewer, I banged the mic, but whatever, you made it to the end and you fed the algorithm. Now, if you don't mind, hit the like button, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.